A new year doesn't always have to mean a new man, but a good New Year's resolution for the man in your life should be better hygiene. Get him the best electric trimmer in men's grooming with Manscaped's Lawnmower 4.0. The Lawnmower 4.0 is here to take down every pube in his path with their advanced skin-safe technology. Talk about a movement I can get behind. Manscaped has also developed a complete hygiene bundle, the Performance Package 4.0, or as I like to call it, the perfect package for his perfect package. How about if your man has wild, and not our kind of wild, but wild nose and ear hairs? Manscaped has you covered. Their Weed Whacker will change the game for whacking the worst weeds. Get 20% off and free shipping with code ROCKY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code ROCKY. The new year is here. Upgrade your man with Manscaped. And Happy New Year to his balls. Thanksgiving, a holiday I do enjoy while being well aware of its problematic origin, the Pilgrims. We all know gratitude is the attitude, be thankful for what you got, that's the key to having more, baby. Just general appreciation. But Thanksgiving is about so much more than that. It's also about eating a bunch of food, drinking, watching the parade, catching up with your loved ones, watching football, maybe even playing football, taking the cousins walk. Some people might even fight with their families about politics. And if you're American, you're likely a seasoned vet at any of those activities by now. It's in your blood. That's what unites us. But perhaps you find yourself struggling with the night before Thanksgiving, aka the biggest party night of the year. You're at home in your hometown. You're useless when it comes to helping with the night before prep, and worst of all, you're antsy. You want to get to that local dive bar that you couldn't get into when you were 18. The bar or bars that are only appealing one night a year. Maybe you're in a bind because you failed to maintain even as much as 2 solid friendships from high school. I only say failed because if you're the type of person who wants to go out in your hometown on Thanksgiving Eve, well, then your high school self should have anticipated that. Sorry. But here you are, and the scenario has happened to you. You want to party. And this is what could happen if you try to party in your hometown. You're scrambling. You don't know who to reach out to. You start going through your Instagram and looking at all your old high school friends. Who are the prospects that are going to take me out for my well-deserved night on my original turf? Now it's time to win those old friends back. You need to start sliding into DMs ASAP, like right now. I'm not talking just liking stories. I'm talking engagement. Make your old high school friends think you actually might be into them sexually. Then, hopefully they're available for that Wednesday night hang. And listen, if you're the hometown hottie that gets hit up by someone you haven't spoken to in 10 years, that's a compliment, baby. You're the creme de la creme, the star of that town in this person's world. So show them what's up. Make them really regret leaving home. These tactics also will work for you on a post-Thanksgiving weekend should you want to keep the party going. You gotta bite. Someone responded to your DM. You're engaging. You two are catching up. You remind your favorite ex-high school pal of a memory you barely remember. Fudge it, make them the hero. They'll be so flattered that you remember this semi-true story that they'll offer to be the designated driver on your holiday outing. Designated driver to them means only 4 Coronas and a pickleback shot. Okay, 2 pickleback shots. This is just a reminder that no one should be drunk driving. It's so uncool and so unsafe. Now let's call your friend Petey. Petey picks you up at your house without a refresher of where you live, because Peteys don't forget. The two of you make it inside the coveted bar. You start requesting Ja Rule on the Tunes app on the jukebox from your phone while you decide between plastic lawn furniture for a chair or the actual bar. Barstool wins. Petey knows the bartender knows you, and you only know them as gym class, but you're too embarrassed to say anything. Now you've done 2 pickleback shots now, 2 because you're feeling free, and you're feeling really comfortable. You want to go with the flow tonight. All of a sudden, the person you've wanted to bang since you were 12 years old but never talked to because you didn't know how to utilize affirmations in your youth has just walked in. You two embrace as if you've had any semblance of a rapport from your youth. You didn't. This might be your night, though. Their divorce is almost finalized, and their soon-to-be ex-partner went to Wisconsin for Turkey Day. You learn that information as you watch and listen to them give you a detailed update on the last 16 years of their life while shoveling bar peanuts down their throat and spitting while they talk. We're all human, right? Sometimes it's a rainy day forecast out the old gullet, but you didn't bring your umbrella, so you've got your crush's chewed up and spit out nut on your bottom lip. And not the good nut. And you're wondering how this goon won homecoming and you didn't even make the court. Your mojo has fizzled. You just want to be back at your family's house. Your Wednesday wild night is turning into a biohazard on your face. And Petey, your designated driver, is wasted. Ooh, and then you remember your crush is semi-anti-vax because before you deactivated your Facebook, you saw they made a post that they weren't getting the second shot, and they didn't need it. Not with what they're pumping in your hometown's water. Petey, getting drunker by the second, now gets a free Uber ride home. And you gotta say goodbye to your crush, but you don't. You grab Petey while your crush is in the bathroom, order an Uber quick, and then immediately realize that it's a hometown Uber, so it won't let you do a shared ride, and you and Petey live on opposite sides of town, so you gotta put Petey in the Uber first. And since Lyft hasn't made it inland yet, you gotta watch and track and make sure Petey makes it home safe. Petey makes you promise you'll keep in touch after you had to pull them away from that punching machine in the back of the bar and haul ass outside while your crush was in the bathroom. There'll be no goodbyes tonight. Dear God, let your crush stay inside. Finally, you see on the Uber tracker that Petey makes it home and you order one for yourself. Once you get in that creepy hometown Uber, you hope for no small talk or all small talk, depending on how you like your little fancy tickled. You make it home. Outside, it smells like fire pit and crisp air. The house is cozy and the red wine is empty. This was actually where the real party was all along. And now, you know. Happy Turkey Day, my little turkeys.
It's time for the Rocket
Welcome to the Rocky Rundown, where you get to learn a little bit about my week. Party God Squad, hello. Did you have a good week? I sure hope so. If it's before Thanksgiving, I hope all who celebrate are enjoying and truly being grateful. Good luck and be safe traveling. And if it's after Thanksgiving, remember while you're out doing your Black Friday shopping or enjoying going out to eat after Thanksgiving, be kind to those working in the service industry. My God, America. It is called humanity. If someone comes to take your order at a table and says, "Hi, welcome, how are you today?" the correct response is, "I'm well, and you?" "Muy bien, ¿y usted?" "Great, thank you, happy to be here." Not, "Give me a Coke," or "What do you got for beer?" You don't need to know your server's name unless they offer it up. If you're in line returning something, the employee doing your return has no control over who's working beside them. They have no control over how many people decided to be in front of you in line, so stop sucking your teeth, tapping your foot, and saying, "What's the holdup?" If you listen to this show and you see someone on your life team behave this way, nip that shit in the bud. Firmly. We don't fight fire with fire, motherfucker. The whole place will burn down. And it's the holidays, for Christ's sake. Bring the light. Be the light. Especially now. There is a revolution in Iran happening right now, and it is gruesome. And we have another mass shooting at a gay bar in Colorado on Saturday night with, you guessed it, an AR-15. So with all that terrible, unimaginable stuff going on, Can you, listening right now, please just try and be a vessel of kindness so we can keep spreading it like ripples? Thank you. And in the spirit of thanks for allowing me to do this podcast for you every week and listening to me for 100 episodes. Oh my God, that is huge. Future Rocky, when you are listening to this, just know, girl, you are a bad bitch. A bad motherfucking bitch. Whether you were in New York, Connecticut, traveling in Massachusetts, Jamaica, or New Orleans, everywhere I went, the Party God Squad came too. Thank you to every guest who opened up to me, especially those guests who might have been meeting me for the first time. Thank you to every family member and friend who never discouraged me. Thank you to the podcast community who are beyond supportive. Thank you to Manscaped, our official sponsor. And the biggest thanks goes to you, the Party God Squad. You listen, you write me, you like, and I love you. If you like this show, then please tell one person whose opinion matters to you and that likes to laugh. That would be the greatest gift. And in the meantime, let's keep on trucking, shall we? DJ Tanner doesn't want to do Lifetime Christmas movies anymore because she wants to protect the image of a heterosexual marriage, which I guess Lifetime is expanding to be more inclusive. Better late than never. So she's hopping on over to a platform that'll keep the Christ in Christmas and keep the Chris out of Tomas. That was a little butt sex joke, if you're not too quick on the uptake. I know why we have to care about her opinion. She has a platform, and by saying all that hateful stuff, she is then in turn making it okay for her followers to be vocal about being homophobic, which is not cool. What the fuck? But really, why? Why do we care what DJ Tanner thinks? Am I wrong? Why is she still even working? She's arguably the worst Tanner. I didn't even watch the show, and I knew this chick sucked. No Full House for me, thanks. Far too many white dads. I couldn't relate. And that's no shades to the white dads out there doing their thing, but I'm a little biased. I like my dads to be black. If he's not showing up to pick me up from school in a drop-top Cadillac with white wall tires, some snakeskin shoes, an all-white terry cloth suit, and matching Kangol, blasting Before I Let Go by Frankie Beverly and Maze while singing it on pitch with a Schaefer in the console and a cigar hanging out the left side of his mouth, then honey, I simply can't relate. But even growing up not watching the show, I knew that Stephanie and Michelle were the cool sisters. How wooed! You got it, dude. Those girls had catchphrases. DJ just had this hot-ass boyfriend, Steve. Now he is someone to pay attention to. Steve isn't canceled, right? What's up with Steve? Let's let this girl go backwards in time and use that energy we would give her in hate to put it towards the Lindsay Lohan comeback we've all been privately manifesting. My God. 4 for you, Lee Loco. You go, Lee Loco. That brings us to Rocky's highest thoughts, my most stoned thoughts of the week. Number 1, my mom genuinely asked me and my brother if Ballers was still on the air. That was hard news to break. Number 2, if you have a goal, bitch, you can do it. You can do it, period. You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. I am telling you, the world is your oyster, and oysters are an aphrodisiac. Number 3, I stopped myself from writing TGIF on a professional email. And that is called growth, baby. Number 4, don't tell me any goddamn secrets on my goddamn deathbed, bitch. I don't want to know. I don't want to know nothing. I don't want to know anything you've had on your chest, nothing that happened 40 years ago. I don't want to know who you fucked, killed, or fingered by the Rite Aid. If I'm meant to know, I will find out as a ghost. Now tuck my feet in and pass me the Jell-O. And number 5, I was very high at the doctor's the other day. And you know when you go in that first room where they weigh you and take your blood pressure? I sat in the chair right next to the scale, and I look at the scale to my left, and it was so close to the chair, I thought it was some kind of new scale that was part of the chair. A scale that weighs you from the comfort of your seat. So I said to the nurse, how's this thing work? I just stay seated and press start, or should I take my boots off, or I'm good? My guest this week is comedian Kristal Adams. Kristal's wild word was New Year's Eve, and she takes us overseas where we're going to reminisce about how COVID stays playing games with plans. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can follow me at Wild Nights with Rocky on TikTok and Instagram, at Wild Nights Pod on Twitter. Ooh, scandalous. If you want to watch extended interviews with all of my guests, please subscribe to me on YouTube. And if you want to support the show with your wallet, you can subscribe to my Patreon for $2 or $5 a month. A big thank you and a future thank you to everyone who's written and everyone who will write a review on Apple Podcasts. It really does make a difference. And now, please enjoy my Wild Nights conversation with Kristal Adams. Kristal, welcome. Thank you for doing the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to have you. You are a woman who gets around in the comedy world. You have a lot of stuff under your belt that I cannot wait to talk about. So, how is LA for you right now? That's where you're living, yeah?
That's where I'm living, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been in LA for a while?
So I grew up in a town that's an hour east of LA, and I went to a college in LA. So I've been in LA basically my whole life, my whole comedy career.
Did you say you went to the same college as Obama?
I did, yeah. So Obama, President Barack Obama went to Occidental College for 2 years before he transferred to Columbia.
Oh. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I went to Oxy. So I'm not the school that he graduated from, but I am where he started. So
amazing. I have that with Flava Flav. I don't mean to brag or step on your thunder, but Flava Flav did go to my college. He did not finish either. He dropped out for bigger and better things. I hear he's doing well, but yeah, so, we both have pretty famous alumni at our schools.
Amazing.
Yeah. What did you study in college?
Sociology.
Oh, wow. How cool is that?
It's something. I mean, it was fun at the time, and I don't do anything with it now.
Not even in your everyday life. You're like, oh, man, this is my degree at work.
I mean, I really do feel like my favorite comedians are really the sociologists of the time. So, and I would say, like, in terms of understanding crowd dynamics, it's not something that, like, it makes sense as much like in my body as much as it makes sense to my mind. So like I spent a lot of time intellectually parsing out like what's happening with this audience or what's happening in this room and why is it happening and what could be done or what should have been done that would have made this better. So
wow. Yeah. Okay, I can get behind that because I have been trying post-pandemic, we're obviously still in it a little bit, but now that we're out in the real world, I've been trying to assess social interactions after they happen. Like when I get home, be like, how could I have done that better? What could I have said? Should I have bitten my tongue here? It's, it's hard to be a human being.
It is. It's hard to be a human being. And I think, we're all getting used to each other again, getting used to those interactions. What I found on this side of the pandemic, which is really nice, is I think I have a little bit more confidence about what it is that I bring to the table. And so I think that kind of causes me to enter into rooms with a levity that I didn't have before.
Wow.
I think I would walk in kind of just expecting the worst or like expecting I'm not going to find my people. I'm not going to find anybody in this room that is like me. But now I think with age and maybe a little bit the pandemic, I'm like, I'm going to find somebody fun to talk to. We may not be besties forever, but I'm going to have a good time.
Yeah, you're going to find someone on your frequency at a party, which, I love to party. And one of my favorite holidays to celebrate is, in fact, coming up, and it is New Year's Eve. Oh, which is Kristal's wild word was New Year's Eve. So Kristal, please take us into your wild night story, New Year's Eve.
Okay, so this is really mainly wild, probably by only like a handful of people's definition, like me and like.
You'd be surprised. Wild is a spectrum. You know what I mean? Like everyone's life experience is different. So wild is a spectrum. You know, what's wild to someone might not be wild to someone else, and vice versa.
I mean, there are elements. It's not that I don't think it's a good story. It's just I don't know. I don't know if I would determine it as wild, but I love the fact that this has happened. And I've never talked about the fact that this has happened really with
Oh,
anybody else
what an
except
honor.
for like my family members.
Okay.
So it starts off with the fact that so my husband is French,
Okay.
like literally straight from France.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married a year ago, but uh so in December of last year, we decided we were going to go to Paris. And I
Okay.
think there was a specific reason. I think there was some sort of event that we had to be there. Anyway, for some reason, we had this trip plan and it was chaotic because France still had, they were probably in a little bit more of a lockdown than we were.
Yeah.
We had to there was a nationwide regulation for vaccines. Imagine that. And so so we had to like go to like the special place to like get our vaccines verified by
Mm-hmm.
France so that we could actually go places.
Right.
And at some point during this trip, we actually planned to go take a train to Italy. And so we actually were gonna come back from Italy like New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
But I we had to take a test. We had to take another test to get to Italy, and then I ended up having a positive test for COVID. Yeah. And this was already like I'm leaving out so much in the leading up to even going to this trip that were like a nightmare.
Really?
Yeah, there was so yeah, because we had to get tested to, go out of the country, right?
Of
We had to
course.
get
Yeah.
tested to go to France, but the way that the testing, it was very confusing. Like the laws were changing, like they changed so much, right? But like if you were traveling right at the cusp of when one law was changing, but then it was another, like some were saying 72 hours, some were saying 48, some were saying
Mm-hmm.
24, right? And so some of those laws were changing like all at the same time,
Yeah. In the
but it
minute.
was hard to figure out which ones that were being applied to our trip, right?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. So we get there, it's fine, we're having fun, we're doing stuff. And yeah, so New Year's Eve we're gonna come back and I think we're gonna have all the whole family over at my husband's mom's house, which is where
Mm-hmm.
we were staying. And we had this whole 3 bedroom apartment to ourselves. It was incredible. But
Yeah.
I had this positive COVID test. And I was just like so sad because it just meant everything was canceled. The Italy trip was canceled. No more family coming, right? And
Yeah.
so
And were you
I'm
feeling negative? Like, were you not negative, but were you feeling unwell?
like I had had a cold, but I had been in and out of hot and cold like rooms, like,
Mm-hmm.
and so I and that always happens to me. Like I
Yeah.
get a cold because of that. And it was just odd because I took several, like I think 5 COVID tests after that in all the different ways that they say to take them. And
Mm-hmm.
I kept testing negative. It was just this one test. I'm like, I don't know. And that was actually the first time that I was just like, and I had actually, because I had worked at a benefits department, so I had
Right.
actually been a part of, making sure people were testing correctly and being
Mm-hmm.
safe and everything. And so I had all heard all of the conspiracy theories that people had, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you guys, come on. But this was the first time I was like, maybe there are, like maybe something's going on because one, how does my husband have it and I don't, and how have I taken all these COVID tests and I
Yeah.
still don't have, it's not showing positive.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway, so
And you're saying he wasn't testing positive.
he was never tested positive. Anyway,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, flash forward to I take all these tests. It's been a week, and I'm thinking we're gonna have the our New Year's Eve alone. And but my sister-in-law, they're like, look, she's feeling fine, which I was at the time, and she's taken all these negative tests. So we're gonna come over. We're gonna come over for New Year's Eve. So it was gonna be my sister-in-law, her husband, and her 2 sons.
Okay.
Now, mind you, my sister-in-law and her husband we're going through some marital drama, like right
Got
up
it.
until that point,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's not spilled over into the family, but it's just like we knew shit had gone
You
down.
knew what was up.
So I'm like, but I'm still excited because she's an amazing cook. She's an amazing, baker. She was making this thing called bûche de Noël,
Mm-hmm.
which is literally translates to Christmas log.
Okay.
So I'm excited, and me and my husband rush out to go buy a bunch of stuff because
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have a real New Year's Eve. Like
Yeah.
it's not gonna be just us.
Yeah.
So they come over, and it's like at some point they say to me, "Do you need us to speak English? Because we'll speak English, if you need us to." And I was like,
That's very
"No, it's
thoughtful.
fine." It was thoughtful, and I should have said yes,
Okay.
because I was lost.
Gotcha. 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 They were just speaking French real fast.
Yeah, and I mostly said yes because I don't like being somebody who's everybody's making the accommodation for,
Catering to, yeah.
like it's I don't know. I have a feeling about it, and so I that's why I said, don't worry about it. But I really was like I was lost. They were like making jokes and stuff, and I'd say I caught 40% of it. But anyway, so most of my New Year's Eve was spent in French with me being lost. And then they
Well, let me
decide,
just ask you, there was
yeah.
no part of you that said, "Hey guys, I'm trying to keep up, but it ain't happening. Can we change the subtitles back to English for this one?"
The thing is that her husband's English isn't that good.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he understands pretty well, but his vocabulary is not, which is actually my case, but for French, right?
Gotcha. Yes, yes, yes.
So
It's two
I
different
can,
parts of the brain.
it really is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so, and I guess I actually have a pretty good vocabulary, but I don't have a lot of confidence when I'm speaking
Yeah.
French. And like you have like you want to be right. And
Yes, of course.
when as a comedian, so much of your personality is words
Yes.
and is using words to show your personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you can't do that, it really feels like you can't be
Yeah.
yourself.
You're stuck.
Yes. So anyway, and it didn't frustrate me. It just was like, okay, I just am, this is what it is. This is one
Mm-hmm.
night of my life. And it's actually been many nights of my life, but but this was my New Year's Eve. Anyway, so then they decided we're gonna do karaoke, right?
Okay.
We brought over this karaoke machine. We like looked all over and like last minute found it.
Mm-hmm.
They brought this karaoke machine, and when I tell you, it took it took her husband no less than 90 minutes. I think it was 2 hours to put it together, to like make it work.
It just wasn't like a mic and an app. It was a whole shebang.
Yeah, because it was like, I think they bought it discounted,
Mm-hmm.
which means that it's like usually coded for China, but like has some English,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was clearly like even the robotic woman sounded like a Chinese person speaking English. It was very
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
so then they finally hook it up after 2 hours. But it was just wild, like how long it took them. They thought they got it, and then they didn't have it, and then they did, and then they didn't. And so
Was this
finally they
contributing to the marital issues? Like, were we watching some bubbling, or you couldn't understand because of the translation?
No, this was like a whole separate thing.
Okay, gotcha, 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 gotcha. She wasn't like cussing
Yeah.
him out in the car home about the karaoke machine.
It was weird because that was, I guess that's what the weird thing was, is that up until maybe like a month before we had actually hung out with them on New Year's Eve,
Yeah,
they had been separated. They had been
gotcha.
temporarily separated.
Mhm.
And then maybe like a couple months, yeah. So like I think a couple months before we saw them, they started, I guess, I don't know if they were doing counseling, but they started getting very religious again. So like
Yeah.
my husband's family is Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started seeing a rabbi again and
Mm-hmm.
doing all these things. And I think, oh my God, I totally forgot about this.
Yeah.
He, my brother-in-law got recircumcised.
So let's walk through that. Let's just like
Yeah.
pause the story. And we'll say he got recircumcised. Now, does that mean we take another layer off, or do we put skin back on and then snip it as an adult man? Just walk me through.
I've not asked.
Okay.
I didn't ask because I just heard pain was involved, so I knew it was not good, and I didn't even want. I'm a little squeamish, so I didn't even
Yeah.
want to.
Recircumcised. I felt like that procedure was one and done.
Yeah, apparently you can have some sort of like mixture of the, I don't know, the spiritual and the physical, re whatever, in order to show your commitment, in order to, you know, I guess come back to God in some
Okay.
sense. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, it was not, I heard it was not pleasant. That is what I heard.
I can't imagine it would be. I just can't imagine it would be. What? Oh my God.
Yeah, so yeah, then yeah, so they are working it out. They're
Okay.
working out their relationship, and
Love to
so
see it.
yeah, and so when we saw them, we were like, wow, like it's like nothing happened,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which in some ways is like, oh, it's kind of weird, but also it's kind of like, well, is everything okay? And
Yeah.
it was all fine for us. Anyway, we had, listen, what I will say is we had a blast singing the hits from Motown that night. Like
Gotcha.
that's what we sang. Motown, we sang some New Jack Swing, which is my husband's favorite. And then
Mm-hmm.
at some point as we were singing, my husband fell asleep because
The karaoke knocked him out. Now that is a wild night to fall asleep during a karaoke night.
yeah.
That's too good.
Yeah.
So you guys just spent the night together. The songs obviously were all in English.
Yeah, the song, I think they might have done one song in French, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the rest were all in English, and they all knew those songs. Like they grew up on the songs.
And now how did you get out of the country?
Yeah, so we were able to take like an antigen COVID test at a
Mm-hmm.
drugstore, and it was fine. And I mean, that was chaotic too because we thought we had to take the, what's the other one?
Rapid?
The not the rapid. It's the one in the lab. Like it takes like
PCR?
PCR. Yeah. So we
Mm-hmm.
thought we had to take PCR. But again, this was right at the time that the laws were changing, and we're like
Mm-hmm.
looking at the US state law. I like never been on this website in my
Yeah.
life, but like I'm looking at the government
Mm-hmm.
website to find out how we get back home. Anyway, but I mean, we already had a flight booked. It was just this one train trip that we were supposed to take to Italy. So I still have not been to Italy.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah. Hmm.
That is such a bummer too. I know exactly what you're talking about because you traveled December of last year. I traveled early December of last year to Jamaica for a wedding, and the night before, 2 days before my friend group, it was a big group of us going down there. Everyone's freaking out about the travel. We have to have negative tests. We have to have this. We have to go to this place. And really, you could have just gone to any lab queue on the street and gotten a test, and the airport wouldn't have cared. But
Yeah.
that anxiety travel you have. And then
Yeah.
we were all staying in villas there. When the women came in, the nurses came in to give us our tests because the villas provide a test for you. When they
Hmm.
came in to do the test, they stuck the thing up our nose, barely wiped it around, put it in a tube, and then I don't know what machine they had or what color it turned, but within minutes, negative, negative, everyone's negative leaving this villa because they don't want, that's their whole source of income at the villa is the
Uh-huh.
travel. Like they
Uh-huh.
don't want somebody leaving being like, "Oh, at this resort I got COVID." They're just
Yeah.
like, "Go home." Like there was
Yeah.
no way they actually tested us. It was just wild. Now I saw an SNL sketch a couple weeks ago. It was like now people just
if they know they're, not in danger, maybe not an at-risk person, they want to get COVID. They're like, bitch, I could have used the 7-day break. Give me the break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's so
Yeah.
true. Because when it was happening, when you're like, I don't know, 6 months ago, if you got COVID, it was like, oh, the world is ending. But now it's kind of like, I definitely could use some isolation for 5 days.
Right,
So I get
right.
that. But that is wild. And your brother and sister-in-law never ended up testing positive.
No, I don't think
Wow.
so. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Hmm.
it is crazy to see how much can change in a year. Now they're not even, as far as I know, worried about that on flights to international flights taking COVID tests. Maybe it depends on the country.
Yeah, no, I mean, we went back to France again in like yeah, a month ago. We were there in
Hmm.
September.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, they don't care anymore. Now nobody
Mm-mm.
cares. We just have to
Hmm.
wait till the next pandemic. But Crystal, you've had a very exciting career thus far. Congratulations on your comedy album, by the way. Ain't
Thank
I
you.
a Wombat? I listen to it on Spotify. You all can listen to it wherever you get Crystal's comedy album. It was so good, so fun, and such a look into your personality. If anybody's trying to, if they hadn't heard about you or if they've been interested in finding out who you are as a comedian, it was a great album to kind of jump right in. So, how did the process of making your album come about? Were you just ready to do it? Was someone asking you to do it? What happened there?
I really wanted to do it. I'd
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do it before the pandemic started, and I felt like I, yeah, I kind of went a lot of rounds with it
Mm-hmm.
because of perfectionism and
Yes.
because nobody had been asking me for it, and like I didn't have the help or like the and I didn't have I have never really had very specific comedy goals,
Mm-hmm.
and some of that has to do with just like self-protection, right?
Yeah.
It's like this is a very fickle industry and anything can change at any moment, and the goalpost or like whatever, it's constantly changing.
Right.
Um so because of that, I didn't push myself that hard to make an album because I didn't have very specific comedy goals. But coming out of whatever part of the pandemic we just came out of,
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like I wanted something to kind of put a kind of line in the sand from the career that I have built up until this point and like this next chapter of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess phrasing it that way, I don't even know if I would have been able to phrase it that way before I did the album, but I know now that I've done the album that that's what it was for me, was
Gotcha.
that it really was like this marker in time of like I have been doing this for this amount of time
Mm-hmm.
and I am proud of what I've done and I want to see that in some way in a format and in a form that is for me and not for a bunch of other like streamers
Yeah.
or Instagram accounts or helping to build somebody else's platform. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see it in a form that is purely to build my platform, no matter what I end up doing with that. And so um yeah, so I had a round of like really overthinking it at the end of 2021 and really abandoning it because it I was overwhelmed by life and overwhelmed by the idea and like just everything felt hard and
Yeah.
difficult, and I know people can relate to that feeling. And then what happened is that there was just kind of this, I think, really what felt like a surge of energy from the universe in terms of things that kind of just seem to click into place for it to happen. And so one of those pieces was I was invited to do a headlining set in Santa Cruz in
Wow.
California. Um, and I was really intimidated by it because you know, I hadn't been on stage a ton, uh, because I was being good. So I hadn't been on stage a bunch, but then I went to the show. I had an incredible set. I easily did 30 minutes, which made me feel very confident. It made
Oh
me
yeah.
feel like wait, I do this. Yes, I
Yeah.
do this, and I do this at a respectable level. And why have I been doubting myself? Why
Right.
have I been doubting my ability and my um, even just my the breadth of my material? So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to do an album. Yeah, I'm going to do it. So the next piece was the venue. And
Mm.
the venue really, and it's a very small thing, but it was really important to me, which is that internally, before I approached the venue, I wanted to have it on my birthday, right?
Okay.
Um, that felt significant, and my
When is your
birthday
birthday?
is, it's Cinco de Mayo, actually.
Oh, a Taurus. I'm a Taurus too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and when I approached the venue, it's a, the owner and I are friends. And so at first he was only offering dates that were like around my birthday, until I brought up the fact that, like, oh, I wanted to have it near my birthday. And he asked, well, when is your birthday? And he's like, we just happen to have that specific Thursday open. We normally don't, but this
Mhm.
Thursday is open.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, okay. So the things are aligning for this to happen. And so I kind of just made the decision to not put a lot of effort into anything other than the material.
Yeah.
I asked a few people about their experiences with albums and like what advice they had to give. And I think the most helpful advice that I got was just about figuring out what my goals were beforehand, which I kind of already talked about. Um and so I think through this process I figured out that my goal for this, because I wasn't going to put a lot of effort even into really marketing and promoting it, it again was just for me to have something online, streamable, downloadable. You can buy it and, download it,
The
whatever.
body of work.
Yes, I want to have a body of work that shows I do this thing. I've been doing it. I've worked hard and I've earned my spot here. Now, whether I, take a slight deviation from what stand up is right now, or if I keep down the stand up path, I at least have done this album.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's honestly, I felt like all of that came through on your special. I felt like it was eye-opening to your personality, your personal life, your history, your present day. It flowed in a way where, it just kind of was like almost like storytelling, but you don't even realize you're getting to the next joke. You're kind of just letting us cruise with you. I really appreciated the silky smoothness of your special. I thought it was very silky smooth. And
Thank
I'm going to
you.
ask you, of course, I'm going to ask you a question that I hope is not a conflict of interest to me in the future as someone who would like to apply for this show. But you were the consulting producer for Netflix's The Circle.
Hmm.
Big fan of that show. Have been told many times that I should apply and have just been lazy to apply. But that show, can you talk a little bit about that? What does the role of a consulting producer entail?
Yeah, so a consulting producer is a catch-all term,
Hmm.
usually to describe a lot of things, but
Yeah.
many times it describes a writer that they don't want to call a writer.
Gotcha. A
So,
ghostwriter.
yeah, yeah, it's a way of giving credit without actually having to pay union dues. So
Gotcha.
right. So like, yeah, because if you call somebody a writer, you can get into like union conflicts and things like that.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, so consulting producer, a lot of times, if you see that on a comedian's profile or resume, it oftentimes means that they were a writer for the show.
Hmm.
So, essentially, my role was to watch the show with the script writer,
Hmm.
um, and the script writer's role is working very closely with the story producer, and the story producer is giving them feedback on, all right, we need dialogue that connects this scene to this scene, or that explains this game,
Hmm.
or that introduces this challenge, right?
Yeah.
And so the script writer is making sure that all of that stuff is in there, and they are anticipating it to, a lot of times, even before the story producer has said it. So, and in my case, the show was completely filmed. A lot of people don't realize this, but it's completely filmed in the UK.
Yeah, and in 1 week's time, right?
It's over 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's because it's filmed in the UK, because it's all UK people, they want somebody on staff to make sure that they are writing things that Americans would get, or
Gotcha.
they're not putting things in there that would be offensive. In fact, one time, one of the editors came up. He was putting together a graphics package
Yes.
to introduce a character from the South, and he had a feeling, but he just wasn't positive, so he needed to come up and make sure. He said, I just want to check with an American. He said, Confederate flag. Bad, right?
But he was honest. It was honest. He didn't know.
He was like, I have a feeling, but I just want to check to make sure.
Yeah, if you want the circle to be canceled, then definitely put the Confederate flag with the Southern person. If you don't, let's take it out. That's got to go. That's so
every day I would watch the show and try to figure out what were funny things to say about the people on the show.
Yeah.
And think about, like, okay, we have this bit of dialogue where Michelle needs to say this. How would Michelle say it? You know? And so try to write it that way so that the least amount of time is spent with Michelle trying to figure out what to say when she gets there, because the amount they pay her, they're trying to limit, that pay. Well, they're trying to mitigate two things. One, having to pay her a bunch more for time for her writing, and then also having to pay her as a writer, which her agent would have demanded if they made her write.
Yeah, or come off the cuff, because we know she can, but why do that? That's interesting. Yeah, I always did wonder, because some of the things that she has to say are so witty and so clever, and I'm wondering if she's thinking of this on the spot, or if this was written for her, or a collaborative process, because sometimes she throws some shade and I love it. That show is so good. I just feel like the only thing that makes me go like, oh, is that sometimes when the new people come in, I'm like, you're just coming in and being there and messing up the flow of things, and then people will like fall in love with the new person all of a sudden. I'm like, what about the OGs?
Yeah.
But the walking, when they have to walk to each other's apartments to say goodbye, that's always so exciting. I'm like, I wonder what that feels like in real time. How much of it is like pushed through. It's just great. Are you going to continue working with them, or did you put your time in and that's that?
So I don't know if the show got renewed. So I worked on seasons 2 and 3, and then
with the Spice Girls.
No,
was that 4?
Yeah, that was 4 and
Gotcha.
So there's another season coming out. So there's 4 and 5 that have already been shot. I think 4 is already aired, and then 5 will probably air later this year.
Gotcha. ASAP.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if it has been renewed. It remains to be seen.
We'll have to keep our eyes and ears peeled for the circle the next season. Now, Kristal, do you have any shows that you can plug? Let anybody know what they can come see you in coming up?
Yeah, I mean, not off the top of my head, I put all of my shows on my website. But the thing that I would love is if people listen to the album and share it with somebody.
Yeah.
That would mean the most to me. I'm actually, in January, we are actually moving to New York.
Yay, neighbors.
Yeah, so we will no longer be in LA. LA is over for us for a while.
The chapter's done.
Yeah, our car was stolen, so that was.
Oh, where was it? Do you know where it was stolen from? Well, obviously you know where it was stolen from.
This just off the street.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, don't buy or lease a 2020 Kia anything. Kia or Hyundai,
They're
anything.
easy to break into.
They are not only easy, but there is a video on TikTok that has gone viral showing people how to break in and to turn them on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
at least we're using social media for good.
Right.
And one of the ways people can use social media for good is by sharing Kristal's album. And Kristal, will you give everybody your social media that they can follow?
Yes, I am at the Dark Kristal on everything.
The Dark Kristal. Well, Kristal, this has been such a joy. Thank you so much for sharing your Wild Nights story. I loved chatting with you, especially having listened to your album. I loved it so much. And so thank you for your time. And you and I will talk soon, okay?
Thank you. Thank you
Abs-
so much.
Absolutely. Bye.